Welcome to the Gospel According to podcast, the first and only podcast looking at the intersection of pop culture and the Christian faith. I'm your host, Dan Ulrich, joined by the other host. You may know him as his heart is full of unwashed socks, his soul is full of gunk, Mr. Dave Hallahan.
Just making it 3 for 3 with Grinch. It's taking the internet by storm.
So. It's your personality now.
That's fine, I guess.
You have this week continued your war on Jim Carrey's The Grinch,
yes,
and have gotten into some arguments online with people.
I don't even know that I would call them arguments.
You've told people they're wrong.
I have told people that they're wrong because they are, and I stand by my take and. I'm right. You're wrong. We did get just a few moments before we hopped on here, we got a DM on Instagram from someone who said they were so happy to hear me say that Jim Carrey's The Grinch is hot garbage because that has been and will always be their take on the movie, but it's not a popular take to have. And so I'm just giving voice to the voiceless here.
Was this Brenda Hallahan?
No. Well,
because I saw she started following us this week.
Yeah, my mom
it
probably
only took
also
2 years for your mom to follow us.
Well, I have a Substack, hallahan.substack.com, but my mom knows about this podcast, and like your mom, I think doesn't get it really, and so she's like listened occasionally, but then she's like, "What's that other thing you're doing?" And so I was explaining that to her, and then she's like, "But you're still doing that thing with Dan?" I'm like, "Yep, we're still doing that." So I guess she found me on Instagram.
Oh man.
But no, I stand by my take, and like I said, I'm just being a voice for the voiceless. We will not be drowned out anymore. We will speak our truth no matter what you say.
There are dozens of us. Dozens. So you haven't come around to that take?
No, I am wondering,
should you do a rewatch?
No, maybe. As of right now, granted, I just watched Polar Express a week or so ago, but I would watch The Grinch, Jim Carrey's The Grinch, over Polar Express right now, for sure.
Well, yeah, you just watched the other one.
And it was also terrible and bad.
And if for some reason you did not watch, that was the most I think I've ever laughed during an episode.
It was really funny. And listening back to it, it was just as good as being here the first time. And I mentioned in the episode about a pitch meeting for Polar Express. Uh-huh. And then I went and there is one, and I sent it to you. It was so funny how I swear I did not see that before we recorded. We hit all the same notes.
Yeah, it was like there was a third member of this podcast just screaming about how crazy this movie was and what were they thinking and what was the point of many of the plot details.
Yes.
There's a ghost hobo on the top of the train. That's also Tom Hanks.
Yes.
And he's somehow insinuating that he was Santa Claus before.
Maybe.
He's like, he used to have magic, ho, 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 and then he disappears, but he was kind of real because the mug still exists, but I don't know. He's making hot chocolate out of a sock.
Yeah. Well, enough of these terrible movies, Dan. We finally got a good one? Question mark. Probably not the best batch of Christmas movies this year.
I would say this is the best one.
Okay, yeah. I think if depending on what Grinch we're talking about, I can be there for that.
Yeah, I guess.
What movie are we talking about, Dan?
A Christmas Story.
Hey,
which they're kind of putting themselves out on a limb. I mean, they're not saying the Christmas Story.
Right.
It's just a Christmas story. But it also makes it hard to Google things about this movie because you're just going to get lots of things that are about the Christmas Story or other Christmas stories. So from that point of view,
Had to do your
maybe
own homework, Dan.
yeah,
So
I had to like watch the movie and not just ask somebody else what. Yeah, I googled what's the gospel according to A Christmas Story, and it didn't exist because
it's
we're the only one out here doing it.
true.
So this movie, I feel like you either love it or you hate it or you think it's okay. One of those three
you,
options.
you live somewhere in between those three. Yes.
So where do
Um,
you fall?
okay, so I don't know how long this movie's been around. Um, there's really no way to know how
No.
long. We will never know. But I mean, I was probably like 14, 15 years old first time I came across this movie. Maybe a little bit younger, but around there. And it was weird the first time I watched it. It was my aunt and my cousins. They like, you've never seen A Christmas Story? You've got to watch it. So we watched it, and they're like cracking up, and we're like, this is just weird. Then the next year we watch it again, and I'm like, this is hilarious. And then watched it enough, and now it's on 24 hours a day, starting Christmas Eve. Um, that it became too like ubiquitous. It was like all over the place. And
Mm.
so just was like overwhelmed by it. And I'm like, this is dumb. I hate this movie. It's been years since I've watched it today. And I enjoyed it. Like it was fine. I thought after fighting trolls on the internet, because nobody actually likes Jim Carrey's The Grinch. They're all just trying to troll me. So after fighting trolls on the internet, after watching Polar Express, which is just like I felt like I was on drugs. Um, I was like, man, I can't believe I'm going to watch a third crappy movie and I'm going to hate watch this thing. But I was like, okay, this is okay. This was a fine movie.
Yeah, I think that the retelling of it, kind of as you insinuated, or the maybe quotes from it are better than actually the movie.
Yeah.
And the cultural relevance that it's become, you'll shoot your eye out, the leg lamp
Yeah.
fragile,
Fragile.
all
Must
of
be
those
Italian.
kind of thing. One of those movies that you can quote, especially this time of year,
Right.
things will come up where you'll quote it.
Oh,
Only I
fudge.
didn't say fudge. I said the F dash 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 word. So some of those things I feel like, it's one of those things you rewatch it. Maybe you watch it out of nostalgia. You watch it because, oh, it's, this time of year we have to watch it again. And so for those reasons, uh, I guess I'll like it, but there's some questions about this movie.
What are those questions, Dan? What
Like, what's the moral of the story?
Ah,
Like,
well,
what's the
that's what we're
point of
here
this?
for, Dan. Well, it is funny because all right, so um like Seinfeld, kind of the pitch is it's a show about nothing, right?
Right.
It's just people living their lives. Lee and I were actually just watching an episode of Seinfeld the other day, and he's talking to Lorraine. Lorraine? No, he's not. Elaine. He's talking to Elaine, and I forget even what the full context was, but he's like, "It's like, well, it's like something." And it's like one of those real life moments where like you're trying to make an analogy and you just can't come up with it. And I always in my life I'm like more of these moments should make it to TV because
Mm,
that's what real life is like. And it kind of worked in in Seinfeld in that episode. But I feel like A Christmas Story is kind of that in a movie form. Like it's just here's stuff that happens,
yeah.
and it makes me question if really we should be doing more of that on TV or movies or not, because it's not quite as entertaining as movies generally are.
Not everybody has a big transformation moment in, 2 months of their life. Not everybody has a story arc. Sometimes people are the same at the end of a movie as the beginning of the movie, and nothing makes sense.
I mean, I do, and like it plays into the title. Like you understand the title more after watching it. It is A Christmas Story. This is a story about a boy, and it takes place during Christmas.
and a family that never apologizes for anything.
Well, families don't need to apologize, Dan.
So I came to a realization watching this movie, and it may have been here before, but I feel like this has really cemented it for me that I am an adult.
Okay.
You heard it here first. Uh,
Breaking news. Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun.
so I watched this movie and I relate to it as a parent and as an adult 100%. Not even a small percentage of me while watching this movie was Ralphie or Randy. Not even 1% of me watching this movie was seen through their eyes. I was just 100% like,
No,
"Yeah,
you
that
will
makes
shoot
sense."
your eye out.
Yes,
Yes.
like, "What are you doing?" Um, and, seeing it from and maybe from this vantage point of being an adult, I saw something that I hadn't seen watching it or thinking about it before, is that Ralphie is so much like his dad.
Mhm.
Did you notice this?
No, I don't know that I did.
Okay, so in the beginning, the whole idea that his dad is kind of obsessed over this game, right?
Right.
He's on his newspaper and he's, playing this game at hopes of winning a prize. Then later in the movie, we see Ralphie is obsessive about the little orphan Annie decoder ring,
Mm.
you know, doing this puzzle hoping for a prize. That they're each have this kind of like unrealistic expectation of the thing that his dad is like, he's gonna get a bowling alley. Like that's what and his wife's like, how are they gonna deliver it? And he's like, oh, maybe it'll be the deed. And it's just like he's just like whatever is
Right.
going on, they're into the puzzle. There's kind of this
Mm.
recklessness about them going about their idolizing things. They kind of both treat uh, their mother, the mom in this situation, in a similar way of that she's kind of there and she's helping them there, but they're not really very much through most of the movie showing them love. There's the
Right.
kind of he's emulating his dad and cursing, when he's beating
Right.
the bully, or, when he, curses when he drops the bolt or whatever. So there's kind of this parallel that I never noticed before.
Mm.
Like he's very much emulating his dad and then getting in trouble for being like his dad.
Right. Yeah, and both of their obsessions have an impractical nature, like, whether you're talking about the leg lamp or the bowling alley, like, neither of those are actual serve practical purposes, but, like, they're just this prize that the dad wants, and then, the son with the obviously, the Red Ryder BB gun with which he will shoot out his eye.
So why do you think this is a classic Christmas movie? Besides the fact that TBS played it for 24 hours straight for the last 20 years and kind of
I do
pushed it on us.
it is one of those things, we have movies and, bands or TV shows that are like cult classics, like, they kinda have, like, this underground following. There's I think a little bit like A Nightmare Before Christmas is that, where there's a certain sect of the population that love this thing, but it's not, like, mainstream or whatever.
Because it's not that great.
Some might say. And so this, I think, lived in that zone for a while. And then I guess because, like, probably money is the reason. But TBS was like, look, people are going to watch basketball or nothing on Christmas. What if we just played this? Like, our TV ratings aren't going to be good anyway. What if we just put this movie on for 24 hours? And then that kind of like forced itself onto, the mainstream pop culture. And I think some people have taken to it. And I would bet that, like, my arc is probably pretty similar to a lot of people's arc, that, like, they came across it, thought it was weird, loved it, hated it, and now it's like fine. And so I think, I don't know, it does have like the quotability. I think there is like uh, a relatability to it, in either, like, as a parent, you're like, no, you can't have this, um, or, even maybe it's not a leg lamp or winning a bowling alley, but, like, your wife and my wife are probably like, why do they care about this thing so much? Like, it's just dumb. Like, so we all have like those things. And then as a kid, like we all wanted things we were should never have wanted and we're never going to get. Um, so I think there is like a, down to earth relatability to it as well.
Yeah, I've never related to a character in a Christmas movie more than in the beginning when the dad is talking to his family that the Sox traded a player that they had just traded somebody for, and now they got another utility infielder, and he's like, "We got a whole team of utility infielders," and like nobody else in his family cares or knows what he's talking about. I'm just like, "Yeah, that's sports in my house."
Yep. Same over here. Same over here.
So, with that idea of what he was wanting, this kind of maybe on the surface level, unattainable or impractical gift, did you have any of
Mm.
these growing up? Did you have any impractical thing that you wished for Christmas?
Um, I think for us, it was always like the latest, like video game system or whatever. Um, and like
Sega CD.
we got there eventually. Like I think we had like Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, PlayStation 2. It's probably where it ended for like my parents buying them for us. Um, and then I had a Wii and an Xbox 360 at one point. But we were always like late to it. We weren't the most well-to-do family, so we always had to like. And my parents did their best, but I bet we put like more pressure on them than we should have. If we were aware of like our financial situation, we probably would have not asked for those things or like a new family computer, because once upon a time, not every family had like 3 laptops in their house, believe it or not. You
They
had
had
like
more.
you had no, you had 1 desktop, Dan, and you couldn't use the phone while somebody was on the internet. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think I don't think there's ever anything that I was like obsessive about, like Ralphie and the Red Ryder BB gun. Um, but I know that we always wanted like the latest video game system, and we did not always get it like we wanted
Mm,
to. How about you, Dan? Did you have any of these?
absolutely. So probably the biggest one was one year I wanted a shed.
Okay.
So, uh,
Why?
so my pitch was,
Wait, as
uh,
this is as a child?
this was as a probably like 8th, ninth grader.
Okay.
So around this time, before we moved, we lived in a split level house.
Hmm.
So downstairs was kind of our um, family room, TV spot, my sister and my bedroom, washer and dryer. Then upstairs was the kitchen, my parents' bedroom, like a formal living room, dining room. So anyway, I played the drums and I was like people had a garage band or like, basement band. Mine was like a living room band. And so like there wasn't really space in our house
Right.
for the Fun Police. That was the band
Mm.
name at the time.
TFP.
Yeah, to play. So we kind of have the drums kind of like off by the TV and kind of bring it out and guitar amps and stuff like that out. And I'm like, what if I got a shed and then I'll put my drums in the shed and then we'll just like practice and we'll be like a shed band. And so that was a my Christmas one of my Christmas presents that I asked for and did not get. That was
Mm.
kind of impractical, but it would have been fun. And I think my other one was maybe around the same time. I asked for a banana costume, like
Mm.
like a mascot banana
Mhm.
costume. That like, where do they exist? I don't know. Like this
Right.
like the Halloween stores are all
This
closed
is
by
and this is
December.
like pre-Amazon, because
Yeah,
now
free Amazon.
you could just get it on Amazon, I'm sure,
Maybe.
but
I don't know. But that was so those were a couple of things. And I've continued the that with my parents. Like now they'll ask me for things and as a joke I'll just say something that's like they'll
right.
ask like what did the girls want for Christmas and I'm like they want a quad. They want a four-wheeler. Like get them this big thing or you know other things like that. So that's the running joke of the depravity of my childhood not having my own shed in the backyard.
Poor guy. Poor guy.
So, we've gotten this far. I teased it wondering what the moral of the story was, but
Yeah.
the real question is, Dave Hallahan, what is the gospel according to not the Christmas story, but a Christmas story?
Yeah, so I have 2. I think they're like 2 sides of the same coin here, but one's like a cautionary tale, and then kind of the flip side of how you can take those desires and it can be a good thing, right? So I think like desire is kind of the theme of the movie. Maybe even lust, like not necessarily in like a sexual nature, but
I don't
like
know. He
just
touches that leg lamp and he's like,
it is a little provocative, yes. Uh, but there's a lust, a strong like desire that just consumes Ralphie over the Red Ryder BB gun. And I think what came to mind for me was kind of 2 stories that I think are similar. But the first, you might have heard of it. It's called Adam and Eve. And Eve is hanging out in the garden, and the serpent comes and is like, "Hey, did God really say this?" Blah blah blah. And what we read is the woman saw that the tree was good for food and delightful to look at, and that it was desirable for obtaining wisdom. So she took some of its fruit and she ate it. And so we kind of have like this: she saw it, she saw that it was desirable, and she couldn't resist that pull. And so she took and she ate. And we actually see that kind of paradigm happen a few times in scripture. And one of the other times that we see it is with David. And David, king of Israel, we read from the roof, David saw a woman bathing, a very beautiful woman. And so he sent someone to call for her. When she came to him, he slept with her. So David sees something that is beautiful, that is desirable, and he takes and he, by or metaphorically, consumes. Like he takes it and for himself. And so Ralphie kind of has that going on. Like he sees this thing, and then it just becomes like this is his whole mission. He's trying to manipulate his family. What's the best way I can talk to them about it? All right, if I can't get my parents on board, maybe I can convince my teacher to do it. And like the lust is for this Red Ryder BB gun is so strong, it creates these like illusions of grandeur that my teacher will never make me write another paper again because this one is so good. And like he's saving his family from robbers with his BB gun. And so it becomes all encompassing and all consuming.
and he rationalizes it much like these biblical characters of like, this is why I need it. Other people have it. Like, I'll be able to protect myself like this, that, of this is the reason why this obsessive thing, when I get it, things will be better in my life.
Right. Yeah. And so I think that's like with the examples that I use from scripture, with the example of Ralphie getting the BB gun, and he doesn't quite shoot his eye out, but he does some damage to his glasses. And so it is a bit of a cautionary tale. Like, be careful of what your desires are. Don't be led away by your passions. But on like the flip side, the positive side of it, I think of Jesus's uh, parable. There's kind of like 2, but it's only 2 verses long. But he says, the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure buried in a field that a man found and reburied. Then in his joy, he goes and sells everything he has and buys that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls. When he found one priceless pearl, he went and sold everything he had and bought it. So I think, when our desire is for uh, this fruit that God says don't eat of it, or when our desire is for someone else's spouse or a Red Ryder BB gun, that obsessive passion leads us astray and causes damage in our lives and possibly in other people's lives as well. But when that passion is for what it's supposed to be for God, for Jesus, even that in that one about the guy who buys the field, it says in his joy he sold everything that he had. Like when we find Christ so desirable that to sacrifice or to lose out on other things is not really even a sacrifice anymore. It's in our joy, I can give up everything else because I found this one thing. And so I think in Ralphie, we see a childlike devotion to chasing after this one thing. It happens to be the wrong thing. But I think we are to have that childlike devotion where our eyes are set only on this one thing. So, like Paul says, we will count everything loss compared to knowing Jesus Christ. So I think the movie is about desires and passions. And as we know, our desires can lead us astray. But when our passions are about Christ and the things of Christ, I think that is where we want to be.
Yeah, and that idea that innately the things that exist, that sin isn't existing by itself, but it's oftentimes it's a perversion of something that's good. And
Mhm.
so this idea of um, David and sex, like in and of itself, it's not bad if it's done between a husband and a wife. In that thing, it was created for something good. Like you're saying, this passion for achieving something or seeking after it, if it's put in the right place, then it is to be right. That we have this desire in our hearts that these things around us, and so much of what the Gospel According to podcast has been is like, yes, these things that are around us are good and can be used for good, and how can we view them through the lens of the gospel that they can be used as good? But if anything is ever put above God, then that's when it becomes idolatry. That's when it becomes a sin. That these things can have a place to be used for the glory of God, or a place just for our enjoyment, that God delights in us, that we would enjoy creation. But when things become sin, when they're elevated to a point that they're not supposed to be, or their direction of how they're being treated or looked at is in a way that is putting them above God, or warping, perversing their goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had similar to what you said, and you even stole my scripture because you probably read it
Hey,
off my
I didn't,
my
I
my
swear.
notes. But this
Dan,
that
I
he's
never read your notes.
what?
I
What
never
am I
read what
doing?
you send me.
So that he's looking for something that will satisfy him, and much
Mm,
of our life is we're looking for something. The youth pastor of there's a God-shaped hole in us
mm.
that we're looking to satisfy, and so he's looking through every channel to satisfy this one thing, that is this Red Ryder BB gun, and he tries to seek it out through different avenues of how he's asking for it, that through, like you said, coercion of his mom, of trying to do inception in his mom by having the ad open to when she opens the magazine, his teacher, of trying to go through that lens of trying to, oh well, I'm going to go to Santa, I'm going to go through this kind of quasi spiritual lens, and then ultimately, who is the one that satisfies this? His father. And who
Mm.
satisfies the longing in our life but our heavenly Father, Dave?
Oh, look at that.
And
Professional
so,
youth
yes,
pastoring right there.
Philippians 3:8. Indeed, I count everything as a loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus, my Lord, that we would keep our eyes set on that incomparable treasure that can only come from our Father, that will truly satisfy. No doubt, as he grows up, the Red Ryder BB gun will lose its luster. It will get broken. It will be covered by other stuff in his closet, that this thing that he wanted so much, so desired for so long, that he thought once he got it, he would be that knight in shining armor, that everybody would look up to him, that if he didn't get it, he would be the blind, beggar that was eating soap, and like everything would be bad in his life. But if he did get it, then everything would be good in his life. And ultimately, I'm sure that did not was not the case. And the same in our life, that whatever we're going to fill our life with, whatever we're going to open in a week under the Christmas tree, those things will fade. They will break. The iPhone 15 will go away to the iPhone 16 and 17 and 18. The whatever we buy will end, but the surpassing knowledge of having Jesus Christ in our life is something that will never end. His love for us is unending, and that we would hold on to that as the true prize, the true meaning of life, and not the Red Ryder BB gun.
Yeah. Nora, my youngest daughter, she really wants a Belle dress, like from Beauty and the Beast. Uh, and she even told me, she said, on Christmas, I'm going to open my gifts like this. No, no, no. A Belle dress. Yay. I love it. And I'm like, all right, well, at least you're setting our expectations correctly. But she's very passionate about this. She has strong desires for it. But and spoiler alert, she's going to get it. But
What
it's
if she
like
listens to this?
it's like it's 5T or whatever. In a year, it's not going to fit her anymore. And she'll move on and probably either have a different favorite princess or not want anything to do with princesses or who knows. But like her desires will change. And I, I think about the C.S. Lewis quote where he says that we often think that the problem with our sinning is that our desires are too strong, that we just desire the wrong things too strongly. But he suggests that our desires are actually too weak. And the analogy that he uses is like a child offered a holiday at sea. They have no way of even comprehending what that would mean. And so they're content making mud pies in a sandbox. And I think that's kind of where we're at in our life, is that in Christ, we are offered the ultimate holiday at sea. We're offered something that is incorruptible, that will always fit. We're not going to outgrow. Moths won't eat, rust won't destroy, but it will exist forever. But we are just too content to settle for the Red Ryder BB guns of our life, whether that is, you know, fame, like starting the first and only podcast looking at pop culture and Christian faith, or if it's, oh, I just need to get this promotion in my job, then I'll be happy. If I could just be married, I would be happy. If we could just have kids, or if I could just be single, or if I could just like we just want we want something else than what we have. But what would really satisfy us is on offer always, and it's in Jesus Christ. So I think it's about developing that appetite, that desire for the thing that will actually satisfy you in Jesus.
Good stuff, Dave. I don't listen to what the trolls say about you. You're a good guy. You want to play a game?
Of course.
All right. This game is called What Bible Character Is It?
Oh,
Christmas Story to Bible Glory.
that sounds like it's the Bible breakdown.
All right. So we're going to go to try and come up with a Christmas story character, and then relate that person or maybe even some things from the Christmas Story movie, a Christmas Story movie, to characters from the Bible. So I have a couple written down. I'll go first as you're thinking about this, since you didn't read my notes that I sent 2 minutes before the podcast started.
Which
All right.
was 10 minutes after the podcast was supposed to start.
Dave, they didn't know this is not going out till next one. Well, as you're listening to this, it's today. But all right. So my first one is Scott Farkas, which is an amazing name.
It
Another
is.
amazing name and an amazing bully is Goliath. Uh,
Mm.
both are imposing forces, terrorizing whether the Israelites are terrorizing Ralphie's friends and brother. And then they ultimately come to their demise by someone smaller and ostensibly weaker than them, as Ralphie jumps on top of him and wails away. And little shepherd boy David knocks him down and cuts his head off.
I like it. It's good. I was not prepared. I didn't read the notes, like you said.
All right.
Uh,
You want me to do another one?
do one more. Do one more.
So I have an object. So I have the Red Ryder BB gun
Hmm.
as the Ark of the Covenant. So in Numbers
Okay.
4:15, it says, "But they must not touch the holy things, or they will die."
Mm.
Can't touch the Ark of the Covenant, or you'll die.
You'll poke your eye out.
You touch the Red Ryder BB gun, you're gonna shoot your eye out, kid. So there's this thing that was powerful, a little bit dangerous,
Mm,
people sought after. There's movies today where people are still doing, as I googled this for some of the scripture verses about the Ark of the Covenant, and the first like 30 things were like, where is the Ark of the Covenant now?
dun,
Is
dun,
it in this
dun.
monastery in Turkey? Is it here? Is it there? Was it destroyed during this time? So is this a thing that people are searching after, looking for, but it's also a little bit dangerous. And if you've ever seen Indiana Jones, their face melts
Yes.
when it's opened,
Yeah.
and then you shoot your eye out.
Yeah, I like it. All right, I got one. I'm going with the mom,
Okay.
and she is Moses because she's like trying to lead a bunch of complainers that want all the wrong things
Mm.
to the right thing, to a happy life that will actually be satisfying to them.
She
And
hasn't eaten a warm meal in 15 years.
yeah, so
And
that's
Moses
like
out here having to eat
wa-
manna every single
yeah,
day.
wandering in the wilderness and eating the same thing over and over again, dealing with a bunch of complainers. Um, I think she's our Moses.
Along with that, give me the dad as Aaron.
Mm.
So kind of along for the ride, doing his own stuff, and give me the leg lamp as the golden calf.
Or even like the in this analogy, the Red Ryder BB gun is like the golden calf. It's like, Mom, I want the Red Ryder BB gun. You'll shoot your eye out. Mom's gone for like 10 minutes, and Aaron's like, all right, yeah, you want it, you want it, you want it? Let's make it. Let's do
Okay. Yeah, so then Moses comes down and,
it.
from the, top, and Aaron had given them the golden calf, the Red Ryder BB gun, and immediately things go wrong.
Yeah. Uh, did you didn't do Ralphie, right?
Nope.
I think Ralphie, I get like Peter vibes from Ralphie because he's impetuous. Like he just kind of this is in the moment. This is the thing that I want to do, um, and not like he can be a really good friend or it could be a really bad friend. Like when your tongue is stuck to a pole, it's like don't leave me. What the bell rung? Like I
I
gotta
know.
go.
I love that. That's such a, like, kid's thought process of, like, there's somebody hurt or there's something here, but
Yeah.
I've been so conditioned to follow the rules that
Right.
the bell rang.
The bell
I'm
rang.
sorry. Nothing trumps
Yeah.
that.
Um, and then he finally gets the BB gun and breaks his glasses, and he like concocts this story about an icicle falling on his eye, and it's like obviously not true, but he's going to go with it anyway. And it's like the little girl who's like, "Don't you follow Jesus?" And then he's like starts cursing her out, like, I don't know that guy. Leave me alone."
Yeah, and I think just having those ups and downs, and maybe his friends are the other disciples getting into
Right.
trouble where they're, fighting over who's going to sit at Jesus's right hand in heaven, fighting over, my dad said, it wouldn't stick, and you're an idiot, and,
Yeah.
I double, triple dog dare, all of that stuff of just the hijinks that they're trying, they're getting into, and kind of the highs and lows of Ralphie that we see some versions of him that he is a good kid, sometimes for the wrong reasons, but we have Peter doing similar things, as that of, in, like you said, in the moment, wanting to do these things, being forgiven for messing up. His
Mm,
mom overlooks the fight, and
mhm,
then he
mhm.
kind of is looking, peering upon her in a way that, maybe Peter was with Jesus pulling him up out of the water when he began to sink, of that, forgiveness being done to him by a higher figure.
Mm,
One of the funniest things that I laughed out loud watching this, he's writing the letter or the thing for his teacher,
mhm.
and he writes the first line, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this is really good." He's like self-reflecting on it. And
Yeah,
all
yeah,
he
yeah.
said was like, I really want the Red Ryder, dual action carbine, whatever. And he's like,
Right.
yeah, this is really good.
Off to a hot start.
Have you ever had those moments where, as a kid, that you think through something and you're like, this is definitely going to work out? But in
Yes.
hindsight, you're like, this was dumb.
Oh, all the time. We used to come up with like just all the dumbest things. Like in our neighborhood, there's probably like, I don't know, 10 of us boys around the same age. And like we would just always like have brilliant ideas of things that would absolutely definitely work. And then next thing I know, like someone has fallen out of a tree and we have to run and get help or
You
something.
remember how his arm used to bend like this? It doesn't bend like that anymore. I think one of the maybe very close parallels I had to Ralphie writing letters. So one of maybe freshman year of high school, we had to write this essay. I think it was like a VWF essay of like, um, how would you make America great or a
Again?
great again? This is like the pre-Trump. Uh,
Who was your teacher?
Brian Rapisi. He's now the superintendent.
Oh, well.
So if you're listening, you're one of my favorite teachers. But this story, so so I wrote, being a good Christian youth group kid, I
Mm-mm.
wrote for America to return to its Christian roots, or return to a Christian root, or following after Christ once again. And I um, put more effort into this essay than I probably did most writing things. I was never
Right.
very good at rewriting things. Like once it was done, you're supposed to proofread and re-edit and then have a second draft and a third draft. I think every paper I ever wrote was a first draft. Like
Yeah, I feel that. Yep.
was not going back and doing anything. I put all my effort into it the first time. But this one I actually did edit, revise, like tried to make it better. And I got it back and like it was kind of the same thing, like C minus. It probably wasn't that bad. It was probably like a B or something like that, with a, a something that said on it equivalent of you shoot your eye out, the equivalent of this is dumb, this would not work.
Right.
And I remember sitting there kind of being as mad as I would get,
Right.
and like ripped up the paper and threw it out before I left the classroom. But in my mind, I was like, I was going to start a revival
Right.
of our country from
Right.
writing this VWF essay. It was like
Yes.
they're going to have me read it, and then it's going to get publicized in the paper, and this like rolling revival is going to start across the nation. Then I'm going to be made the chaplain of the United States and be flying on Air Force One, and like return America as a Christian nation. And it did not happen. And Alan Reed won the essay contest.
Mm, mm. And now America's awesome, thanks to Alan Reed. Now, now Alan lives in Australia.
Thank
Yeah.
you for joining us. Thank you, everyone out there, for joining us for the Gospel According to. Remember to follow us on all social media platforms that exist at the time that you're listening to this. So whether
Mm,
you're listening in the past, then go on
mm,
MySpace. If you're listening in the future, go on Bezoverse.
yeah.
Or if you're listening in 2023 or 24, we're on Instagram, Facebook, X, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter at TGAT Podcast. Follow us on those socials. Interact with us. When Dave has a next hot take, you can tell him if he's right or wrong. And make sure to set your little orphan Annie decoder ring to B2. Uh, don't forget to share the Gospel According to with your family and friends. We triple dog dare you.
Ooh, triple dog dare you. We do. And we also triple dog dare you to send us a mailbag question on our social media or by emailing tgatpod@gmail.com. And we would be happy to answer that question live on an episode that you will listen to later after it's been edited.
If you want a
Uh,
surefire way to tell Dave something, give us 5 stars,
mhm,
or in a review, and he will have to read it
I
here.
will. It's true. Yeah. So you can do your part in obeying the Great Commission by helping us spread the gospel according to podcast by leaving a review, and I will read whatever you write on that review.
He's
I'm
like
like
Ron
Ron
Burgundy.
Burgundy.
So
Just
rate 5 stars. I love Jim Carrey's The Grinch, and
yes,
tune in next episode to hear him say it.
yes, and I will do that. So be sure to leave your own review that you can make me read live next week on your favorite Hump Day podcast. This was the Gospel according to
A
Christmas
story.
story.
Fa ra 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 ra.
I can't put my arms down.
You'll put
Put
your
'em
arms down when you get to school, Dave. Red Ryber BB gun. Red Ryber.
Like it, like it. Do you have any more?
Santa. The Santa scene was funnier than I thought it was before. When he's just like the kid sits on me, he's like, he's wet. Oh, I hate the wet ones. Why is he wet? It smells like tapioca. It's like,
I hate the smell of tapioca.
so Santa's me. I resonated with him.